Hey everybody, welcome to the next interview in the Apex interview series. This is our deep dives where we are getting to meet the competitors of the Apex Challenge. This is where we're starting to find out what makes them tick. We're starting to find out what's maybe motivated them and inspired them to take on the Apex Challenge, and also starting to find some of the inspiration behind what we're doing and starting to really understand how big this challenge is for some of the people. Now, the guest that I've got today, Nathan Chilton, I've been buzzing to talk to this guy. I've just been having a quick chat with him now because his story, for me, I find it empowering and I find it motivating to myself, but I find it fascinating how different individuals find ways through what I would maybe think of as adversity. Maybe I would think of it as a hindrance or something like that. But when you hear this guy's story, when you understand just how much he's gone through and still is going through no fault of his own, except some parts of it, which are a little bit of a fault of his own, but that's only because he decided he wanted to renovate a house and start a family and push that timeline. So he likes a bit of pressure, let's just say that, or if he doesn't like pressure, he certainly has found a bit of pressure. But I'm going to bring Nathan in and we can have a quick chat with Nathan. Well, not a quick chat, we'll have a deep dive in. So Nathan, good morning, mate. How are you?
Good morning, Tim. I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for joining us this morning on our Apex interview series. And like I said, I'm excited because I really wanted to talk to you because your story for me, it was just, I was mind blown by just how much you've been through and also kind of the relentless nature of how things have just kept coming for the kind of the past decade, well, over a decade, I suppose, for you. But first, before we dive in, I suppose I should let people know that way back in the day when you were at university, you used to play a lot of basketball, you told me, fit and healthy guy, you used to enjoy exercising and keeping yourself in fairly good nick and order. And then kind of you started only to find your love for hiking and the outdoors. Is it in the past 3 or 4 years? It's a relatively short space of time.
Yeah, say probably pandemic time actually, when you're almost forced to find other things to do. It was in the process of waiting for a surgery, which we'll talk about. But yeah, I just started getting out walking because I couldn't run anymore. I was cycling and walking and just going out in the peaks, and that's how it started. So yeah, early 2020s really. And yeah.
So one of the things that everyone's got to do while you're watching this, you need to kind of keep a mental tab as to the dates that Nathan's saying. Right, early 2020s, this is when it started. All right, let's fly back and I suppose maybe the best thing is for you to let everybody know kind of the backstory as to the unusual condition that kind of started all of this.
Yeah, so 2013, I was in my first year of being a chiropractor. So graduated 2012, moved to London. Anyone that's been to London know London life's pretty hectic, long hours, maybe going out, staying up too late, all the above. Perfect environment for disease to develop. But I think lots of things throughout my life, environmentally, whether that be emotionally, physically, was always leading to this point. So 2013, I started getting groin pain. I'd played quite a lot of competitive basketball, like semi-professionally, Derby, for university, and I thought it was. I know lots of basketballers get this impingement syndrome where you get a bony growth that kind of causes a bit like arthritic symptoms. So I'm a chiropractor, so was getting adjusted, seeing a physio locally, doing some rehab, and it started to get better. Then it'd come back, and then it just started to get worse. So I checked in, had an MRI, and then flew off to Thailand coincidentally for a month. And then I had loads of like missed calls because I was in Thailand. My voicemail wasn't picking it up. Had loads of letters. Came back and it had a letter saying, you need to come in, the MRI results, it appears to be some kind of tumour in your pelvis. So the penny didn't really drop. So I went in and then the doctor sat me down. And because of my studies, we're trained to read x-rays and MRI. So he's using all the medical jargon and it's kind of, okay, I'm fresh out of uni. This is all still fresh in my head. And they said, yeah, we're not sure if it's like a cancerous tumour or a benign tumour. They look both exactly the same on the MRI. So then it was kind of got me in for a biopsy the next week. A month later, I'm having a surgery, which at this point, compared to the surgery that I had in 2018 and 2022, this was an incision this big. The tumour was about the size of a squash ball, and they kind of scraped it out, and I was back on my feet within 6 weeks. So that was 2013. Back at work fairly quickly. Didn't really change my life and my environment, both kind of spiritually, emotionally, physically. That environment was pretty similar to the environment before. So it started to grow back from kind of 2015, 2016. If anything, if I'm honest, that period between 2013 to 2015, I probably went off the rails more so in regards to I've just survived this.
Yeah. Kind of took the opportunities to kind of push out there with life and go, oh, well, look what's happened. This could have happened. This could have happened. I've avoided this. Why not just celebrate and party a bit more?
Exactly. And yeah, the environment was one that was perfect for not health, basically. So it started to grow back 2016, fairly slowly for a time. And then July 2018, I had a checkup and it grew something like 34% in 6 months. So they were like,
whoa.
Yeah, and it was starting to become, actually, no, Tim, actually, I didn't have any symptoms at that point. So I went in thinking, oh, the checkup's going to be fine, as they have been. And that was an absolute curveball because I had no symptoms. At this point, I think I was cycling, gymming quite heavily, and I didn't have any overt symptoms. So that was a shock. Out of all the hospital appointments, that was probably the biggest shock because I actually went in thinking, oh, it's just going to be a normal checkup. It will still be the same size. It'll be fine. I've got another 6 months or 12 months of watching it. But they said, we actually need to do something. And then the discussion here at this point was to do a fairly invasive surgery, but try and keep my pelvis and hip joint intact. Or the surgery that I had in 2022, they were the options. And there were quite big risks for both. But the second one that I had in 2022 was we needed to try and delay that. So this was a big surgery. I think 2018, probably similar, 6 to 8 hours, scraped it out. I was in hospital for 2 weeks, and the recovery was fairly long. And then the long story short, it started to grow back again, I think a year after. So they got me in July. I had the surgery in October of 2018, and then it started growing back in 2019, 2020, just as I opened my own practice in Derby, which was going well. And it was going well up until I had to close it. The only reason I closed it and eventually moved to Manchester to live with my partner was the tumour, really, because we had to do the bigger surgery, which was in January the 10th, 2022.
And when you're talking bigger surgery, so I mean, the backstory you can see already to this point, it's been, just under 10 odd years, 8, 9 years, where you've been kind of in and out, relentlessly having checkups and surgeries and rehabs and things. So it's already a really grinding experience on you, not only physically but mentally as well. But then hitting into 2022, the surgery that you had in January was, when you say major, it is major, and we'll show you the X-ray picture. Is it just a case of that you're going to have to maybe take the endurance level a little bit slower? Does pace really affect it and stuff for you as well, or is it just like is it like duration that's the major factor for you? You sent to me, which I was just amazed by, because it was 75% of your hip then removed and changed.
So yeah, so you've got two sides of your pelvis, and then your hip socket sits in it. So there's around, say, 70-ish%, 75% of the bone removed and then replaced with a bespoke titanium implant, which is the same shape of my bone, which I was quite lucky. I'm blessed to be able to have, because if it wasn't for that, it would be kind of off the shelf stuff, which was an option because they weren't sure they were going to be able to wait, because it was kind of an urgency, because it was starting to push on like the neurovascular bundle and stuff. So this was actually really painful prior to the surgery. But luckily, it was made in Germany. They managed to send it over in time, because my mobility and where I'm at now would have been very different if it wasn't kind of the same shape as my bone. And just before I forget as well, in the midst of all that, a month before the surgery in 2018, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And in March after the surgery in 2022, I had a checkup of my lung, and it spread. So I've got like benign implants from this in my lungs, which at the minute, obviously my lifestyle is completely different. Everything I'm doing. So I think we've managed to slow them down naturally, because there isn't really too much of a medical intervention for these. So yeah, just to add a bit of icing on the cake.
I mean, like, you hear this story and you think for me, I just look at it and go, why does it always happen where they just, whatever it is, the energy of the world just decides, you know what, let's just really test how much resilience you've got. Let's just really see how much you can tackle. But even when you're telling this story, and this is something I've started to look and see from you, is you're still saying that with a smile that comes across your face, and you're saying, all right, if you're going to be there, I'm going to find a way around it. I'm not going to lie down. I'm not just going to take this, and I'm not just going to sit back and go, well, that's me. I'm done. I'm just going to resign myself to sitting on the sofas, not moving around too much. You're like, no, that's not the case, because you have actively tried to find other ways to improve your own life. You've tried to find ways to improve your own health. You've tried to find ways to work on your mindset, and I've seen throughout your socials, like, bringing gratitude in, but then you're still trying to help other people by the job and the career that you do, but also by the things that you're putting out on social. And it's amazing that you have this level of kind of resilience, this attitude of care and abundance and sharing that you want to put out into the world. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. So you've now posted surgery. So you've got this kind of 75% replacement of the hip and things like that now. How? And I saw the video of you. You said it came up with your rehab. How you kind of glanced back to see what it had been like, your rehabilitation, because the journey from that kind of surgery must have been immense back into being able to move.
Yeah, it was. So I was in hospital for 3 weeks, bedbound for 10 days. And yeah, you really don't know what level of mobility you're going to have, because like the severity of it is huge. Like the implications, however important area the pelvis is, and all the structures that pass it. I was lucky again with it being benign, even though it was it hasn't acted like a benign tumour, but they managed to keep quite a lot of my muscle in the area. So say if it was cancerous, what they would have done, and quite a few people have reached out to me that have had similar things all over the world. They've had cancerous ones, but because they have to then take a margin around the muscle, so then that obviously like destroys function. So it was tough. Like, I couldn't take a step. Like my first time I got out of bed, I literally sat on the bed. I couldn't move. I couldn't do one step. I didn't think I was going to be able to walk unaided. And I was told, so that the Everest, how it came about is someone said to me, "Oh, I doubt you'll be able to do Everest, but you might be able to walk in some hills with sticks or something." And I remember the set. I won't swear, but I remember, it's a bit harsh. I didn't really need to hear that. But I think subconsciously at the time that pushed me, because I couldn't leave the hospital until I could walk with the Zimmer frame at this point and go downstairs 10 steps and up 10 steps. And I remember for a week where we'd get a bit closer to the door, and then we'll get closer, and it just felt like it took a lifetime. And there was a point where I didn't think I would be able to, because the pain, I can't even probably imagine how painful it still was, but it just felt, one, like the leg wasn't mine. There was so much muscle spasm, so my quads that attached to the bone that's no longer there, that now attaches into my stomach. So the hip flexion was affected. My adductors, so the inside muscle, normally attaches to your pubic bone. My pubic bone's kind of fused now, and it's half metal, so that's attached halfway down my leg, so into soft tissue rather than a hard anchor. And my glutes are wired on to the greater trochanter, because that kind of chipped off when they were doing the surgery. So, like, mechanically, I understand why people were thinking, oh, you're probably not going to be able to walk or get out in the mountains again, but the body can adapt given the right stresses, and if it's done repetitively. So my main aim was literally walk every day, whether it was 5 steps or 10 steps or 100 steps. So as soon as I could get out of the hospital, which was still agony when I was documenting the journey, more for me, well, actually, initially it was more for other people and give me a purpose. But looking back now, I've realised it was more for me, because it's easy to get lost in feeling that you're not making progress in anything in life, let alone a surgery. So as of late, I've actually looked back and been a bit more compassionate to myself, rather than be annoyed, thinking, oh, I wish I was a bit more able-bodied so I could do this, do that. But really, to be able to do what I'm doing, is,
I mean,
the guy.
It's phenomenal. I mean, you say this, and so you say to try and offer compassion to yourself, and you say that, you know, you maybe have glanced back at times and thought you'd like to be able to do more. When I, like, said and saw that once you'd announced that you were actually doing the Apex Challenge, that you then were going to do your first training hike, or hikes, should we say, for this, because you're able to do so much now that many other people couldn't even, or aren't even at the physical position to do now, who are, let's use this term loosely, able-bodied or anything like that, you know, who have not had the major surgeries that you've had. So I just want to go back a bit. So saying, like, the progressions that you made, and it was about taking those steps every single day. Was there a point when you kind of found that your body had made a bit of an adaptation, and you thought, right, I now have the ability to be able to move. It's now up to me to be able to challenge myself harder and further to improve the quality of life that I can have from this, so it makes everything that bit easier in the rest of your life? Was there a moment when you went, okay, this is it now?
There probably was, but I'm not sure if I was too conscious. It was definitely a gradual progression, and then all of a sudden you would think, oh, my balance is a bit better, or I'm able to walk a bit further without aching. I set a challenge. I managed to get out into the peaks after 8 months of the surgery. So in that November, which looking back, so my friend, really good friend who's doing the challenge with me, and Morris, his name is, he used to drive me to Glossop, because we're in Manchester, and so I could just literally hobble off the road into the peaks, and just to be like around the environment. And then, we kind of set a challenge in November, and looking back, it was ridiculous. I had one crutch, didn't have my walking sticks, and we ended up doing my first wild camp in November using a crutch, and obviously November weather, it was windy, didn't sleep, so I ended up doing like a 5 mile or 4 mile walk for my first one. Bear in mind, I hadn't really been walking at all, and then wild camped, and then did a 2 mile walk back for my first excursion. Yeah, it was good. It proved to me that actually that's the point, Tim. That was the point where I thought, okay, if I can do this now, the limitations, there isn't really too many. If I can do this after 8 months.
Okay, so that was your first kind of proper real hike and stuff, like kind of post sort of your surgeries and working into it. So then how has that then progressed over the past kind of few years? How have you then sort of really started to move forward with the hiking outdoors and things like that? And also another question why it's just popped into my head, is there anything that you like, have you found that have you had to experiment with different shoes and boots and things like that, certain things that work better for you, don't work for you and stuff?
Yeah, so a year to the day near enough, I started wearing barefoot shoes.
Okay, what like Vibrams that?
Yeah, the brand Vivo, like Vivo Barefoot, they're the
Yeah,
brands
yeah.
that was going to. So I thought the mechanics of the foot and the effect of the chain, kinematic chain of the knee, hip. I tried it out, and absolute game changer. That's all I wear now. I can't wear my old trainers. My feet have kind of widened as they should, and I think that was one mechanically and physically a huge game changer, to help speed things up mechanically. Anyway, like huge game changer. I can't stress it. I tell all my patients about it, and I think the missus is fed up with me talking about them. She's finally got 2 pairs now, but it was an absolute game changer. Morris, the guy who's doing it, that's all he wears now. We started wearing them at the same time, and we haven't looked back. So I've got smart ones, hiking boots, gym ones, everything. So I think that is really obviously anyone going through something to do with the hip, pelvis, knee, ankle, it definitely should be something they should consider.
How did your hiking kind of progress then from that first walk? Did you start kind of picking, I don't know, like one a month, or did you start kind of trying to get there more often? Like, were you going every week, or how did you start moving this forward?
So I set a challenge to teach myself how to swim, or had lessons, professional lessons, and that was a game changer with helping the hip flexors, strengthening them up.
Yeah.
So the swimming really helped because I couldn't swim. I literally, doggy paddle was probably the best I could do.
People often say, "Oh, I can swim. I know how to swim." I think, I know, because I did this as a triathlete. I thought I could swim. What I really knew how to do was not drown for a period of time, and I could get kind of from one side to the other. And then when you actually learn and you're properly starting to swim, you're like, oh my word, this is really different learning how to do it, and your body feels completely different.
It's I didn't know the technique at all, but that was a good like milestone to do. And then we went on holiday, and I like open water swam like a year after the surgery, which I'd never dream of doing. I would never have had the confidence to do that. It was like a calm, nice sea, so nothing too extreme, but just little challenges along the way. Again, just gave me evidence to suggest that you're able to do more than you think. And then hiking wise, I really did a lot last year and made a conscious effort to either get to the peaks or the lakes once or twice a month. And funny enough, Helvellyn was the range that I used to go on my own, either drive there early in the morning, do a like 12 to 15 miler, drive back, or I would stay in Grasmere, do a weekend. So me and my partner, we did a few where we did like an 8 miler one day, an 8 miler the other day, and then a 6 miler, just to get consistency. And they were my kind of limits. I could have gone further, but the thing that I'm going to have to do training wise is the adaptation of when my muscles fatigue. They fatigue very differently to my other muscles. When we were saying to Morris in the peaks, I was like, I wish I had 2 left legs, because my left leg feels like it could go forever. It probably couldn't, but it's not a shame, because I wish I could push myself. I use the term able. If I hadn't had this, who knows, I might not have had this passion and drive to do what I did. So, because I didn't really hike before, but I'd love to see if for a day or 2 days I had a body that was, again, we'll use the term loosely, fully abled, to see what I could do. Because it would be interesting. But I'm like I say, I'm grateful and blessed to be able to do what I'm doing.
It's remarkable. So I've got a friend who he's an ex-paratrooper, and he unfortunately lost part of one of his legs over in Afghanistan, and he's often said sometimes similar things, that the leg that he still has, obviously that was injured and stuff as well, and he says that one sometimes causes him more problems than his prosthetic, because it's still kind of there but doesn't have all of the function to it. And there's a triathlete, a gentleman who I follow, who is a W amputee, and on the bike he has to use his glutes to drive the pedal momentum versus his quads, because he doesn't have the quads there to do it. So he's using glutes the entire time. And the thought of doing an Ironman just using my glutes fills me with fear. But then I suppose for you, it must feel it's even slightly more alien, because you've got one side that you think, okay, that's driving forward really hard, and this side's then just starting to fatigue and slow down. It's not like you can then say, just use your glutes like the triathlete guy, because you've got to find that mismatch. So
I'd say probably a combination of all. It's the pace is definitely a thing. I can't run. I haven't run since 2013 really, but the pace will be important, and to not get too excited and do too much. I think going up is a strength of mine, and I could make time going flat, but I'm going to have to take my time going down because of the eccentric contractions that are happening in the hamstring. So I didn't mention, so the hamstring is attached. They've managed to save a little bit of your sit bone in between two pieces of metal, and that's where my hamstring attaches. So I spoke to the consultant, and he thinks what's happening is when it's contracting, sometimes it's given a bit, so that can become tender. So that's the concern. And my adductors go into spasm. I did it was 12 miles in November, and I just hit like 11 or 12 miles, and then it was just like, so I just need to get the miles and the confidence, I think. And there will be a point when physically it might be it, but
so obviously with the Apex Challenge, the idea is to try to accumulate Everest. The idea is if you can summit the 9.2 times you've hiked you've accumulated the total height of Mount Everest. But that's not what the challenge is just about. The challenge for a lot of people is going to be maybe attaining 1 or 2 summits. For some people, it might be trying to see if they can summit twice each day or something like that. Have you even allowed yourself to kind of think of I always think of it as like, that's my A game goal, that's my B, and that's my C. Have you thought about that yet? Or are you thinking, I am just going to go and just push and see how much I can achieve?
Yeah, I want to do the 9.2. And I think I'm just going to set my top target on that, and just see what happens. And if I get to a point, I'll know it. I'm not going to try and kill myself or do something. I'm not going to try and injure myself permanently forever. I've got a little one on the way. And I don't think it'll go down very well.
No, I don't think so. We should probably cover that off as well. I mean, this is I could sit here and talk to you for hours because there's so much to pick apart. But you've also decided that now is a good time to renovate a house and start a family, because your little one's due in April.
Yeah. April. Yeah.
Do you know what you're having?
No, it's a surprise. It's a surprise. So, I promise that I'm not going to do permanent damage, but I'm going to give it all I've got, and just be honest with myself, and just see. We've got nine months worth of training, which is a long time. I just need to get the miles in, and I'm going to try and contact some physios that might have some expertise in working with people similar to this, because there are some things that I can do to functionally do, I think, that will give it a bit more stability. So there's lots of things that I can be doing for 9 months to give me the best chance. But I think mentally I could do it. It still wouldn't be easy, even if I didn't have this. But I think I said to Morris, like, even if I did it 4 times or 5 times or whatever number, I feel like I've already ticked off lots of Everests along the way anyway. Like being able to walk, going to the peaks, doing Helvellyn on my own, numerous times.
Saying that while you're saying about ticking off Everest, so there's always a few questions that we ask a few people. But before I ask those couple of questions for you, If there's anyone watching who's happened across this video who maybe struggles with their mindset, maybe allows those demons or the black dog to kind of creep in a little bit and overpower their thoughts, thinking, I can't do this, and they allow that negativity in. Speaking as someone who, as an outsider looking in, there's an awful lot of negativity that you could have allowed to overwhelm you over the past kind of decade, over the surgeries that you've gone through and things. What advice would you give someone else? And maybe if there's anything that you do to try to keep your mindset positive and on the right track?
I think one big thing is just aim to be a little bit better each day. Just small steps in anything, whether it be a more compassionate person, more patience, being able to do more steps, being able to do lift more weight. Everything in life is like an accumulation of small steps. It's easy, especially in this day and age, to look on social media and see people that have been doing something for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you're seeing that, and we all do it. I do it all the time. I had a break off social media for like 9, 10 months last year. But it's focus on just small improvements. Try not to compare yourself to others. It's good to use people to inspire you, but there's a fine line of being inspired and then wishing and coming from a place of lack. Oh, I wish I could run that fast, or I wish I had that car, or I wish I had that body, etc. And that just creates like negative energy and negative feedback loop.
Yeah.
But it's be patient, take small steps, and don't underestimate the power of being grateful for the smallest of things. I nearly died. My blood pressure went 32/18. I literally thought I was taking my last breath. So once that's happened, my life could never be the same, because when I'm walking, there's an exercise I've made up, or I do, where you just be grateful for every step, for every breath. You do that for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Your whole body chemistry, energy changes. But it's the small things, like being able to speak on a mobile phone, have a drink of water, if you're lucky enough to have a family, don't take that for granted. And that's something I'm so blessed to be able to experience. I can't wait.
I mean, bringing gratitude into everything. You said on something that I watched you'd said the other day. It's not. You said that it's not about the mountain; it's about the journey to the mountain. You'd said this on one of your social things, and you said it's about, like you've just said now, being the best version of yourself that you can be. And I thought that was brilliant, because the Apex Challenge is not just about the day, the weekend. It's not just about trying to accumulate those summits. It is about the journey of getting to that, and about enjoying every moment of that journey, that training, that opportunity to become that best version of yourself, which I think is brilliant. And you clearly encapsulate in it, and you clearly live that ethos throughout your day. So we are racing through time, so I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions. So number one, is there anything that you do daily, routine wise, that is an absolute non-negotiable? You got to do that every single day to kind of keep you on track?
A few things. At the minute, cold shower, some kind of breathwork meditation, and for the past 4 months, 10,000 steps, which is fitted in quite nicely to the training ready for this.
Okay, so then we've got two questions that we normally ask everyone, kind of coming into the end of them. So it's number one would be, what is your Everest? Now this is a hard question, I suppose, because like you've already overcome, like you said, quite a lot of your Everests. But if I was to ask that to you now, what is your Everest? What is it right now, today?
Well, this challenge is for sure, and probably evolving and realizing that it's not going to be about me from April, that everything I do will ripple on to whoever, boy, girl, who will see what I do day in, day out, and as a result of that, they will learn what it is to to live this life and be a human and have a human experience. So I'm looking forward to that. So that will be my Everest, I think, trying to be the best father that I can, best partner that I can, to bring up.
Wow. That's spoken like a true dad. Not even there yet, but spoken like a true dad. Always about someone else. That's amazing. And the final question, and the last question I've got time to ask you, would be, if you could sum up the Apex Challenge in one word, what would that word be?
I've tried not to think about it too much so it's organic, but I've listened to a book called The Comfort Crisis. I can't remember the author. And there's a bit in the book that says you should set challenges to yourself to get out of your comfort zone, and they're called masogis, if you've heard the term. I hadn't before. And it's basically, this is my masogi. So you do a challenge that you think you can't complete, but you do it anyway, because through that you evolve and you go to the outer edges of your comfort zone, which will be far exceeded on this challenge. And in that space, you evolve into something that you weren't before. And I think that's what my whole life has been like for this past 10 years, is these things that you go through these things and you evolve and you change. So that's what it would be, my masogi.
Your masogi. I've just literally fact checked that right now on the computer next to me. Michael Easter.
Yeah,
Comfort Crisis. Michael Easter. Embrace discomfort to reclaim your wild, happy, healthy self. That's a book recommendation. That I'm getting that today. I'm on that one today. And
it's great. It's a good audiobook as well. So with all the walking and training we'll be doing, it's a good listen.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, Nathan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for chatting to us. I dare say that we will probably have some kind of follow-up for you. I dare say we'll probably wind up getting a bed at some point hiked up to the bottom of the mountain so you can start clicking and cracking everyone back into position.
Yeah.
We'll probably put you to task and have you to work. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And it has been a wonderful experience. So thank you so much for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, Tim.
Everybody, that has been amazing. If that's not inspiring to you, I mean, I could talk to Nathan for hours. I genuinely could. And I feel like we've only scratched the surface of the knowledge that man's got as well. So this is just an opportunity to have a deep dive into meeting more and more people. There's going to be loads more coming up. So please do make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. Make sure you share all your training and things as well. And I'll catch you on the next one. So take